Hi everyone. Okay, so today during my quiet time, I was reading these two scriptures, and there is a revelation that the Lord gave me. I want to share with you. So I want you to stick me to the end. You'll be a blessing. Let's go and read these two texts, and I'll share with you what I learned. Stay blessed. So the first text is taken from the book of First Samuel chapter 1, verse 4 and 5, and I read. On the days Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he gave portions of the meat to Peninnah and each of her children. And though he loved Hannah, he would give her only one choice portion, because the Lord had given her no children. I'm taking the last part again. Because the Lord had given her no children. This is the account of Hannah being barren because the Lord had given her no children. Let's take the second test. Current text is taken from Luke chapter 1, verse 5 and 6, and I read. In the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zachariah, who belonged to the priesthood division of Abijah. His wife, Elizabeth, was also a descendant of Aaron. Verse 6. Both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commands and decrees blamelessly. Verse 7. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive, and they were both very old. This text to Elizabeth was barren because of her age, because she was old and the husband was also old. Now let's go back to the revelation. Now, we read two quotations about two women, Elizabeth and Hannah. Now, with the case of Hannah, she was barren. She had no child. There was a The reason was because the Lord had closed her womb. Listen to it very carefully. The reason why Hannah had no child was because the Lord Himself has closed her womb. So it was not the fault of Hannah of not having a child. It's because the Lord Himself has closed her womb. Now, the second woman we read, Elizabeth, she was also barren. Why? The reason the scripture said was that because she was old. So there is a difference between Hannah case and the case of Elizabeth. What is the difference? Now, the difference, as well as what I want to teach you today, is that with the case of Hannah, it was the Lord Himself. But with that of Elizabeth, it was not the Lord. It could be that the case of Elizabeth, it was a physical challenge or something they were going through. What am I trying to tell you? There are some things that happens to us, of which we think it is the Lord, but it is not. Some things happens to us which are the will of God, and some things are not the will of God. Hannah, it was the will of God. Elizabeth, it was not the will of God for her to be barren. Check your life. There are some things you're going through thinking that it is the Lord. It is not. And there are some things that you are thinking it is not the Lord, but it is the Lord. How would you know that this thing I'm going through, it is the will of God? Or what would you know that this thing I'm going through, it is not the will of God? Sometimes we put the blame on the devil, meanwhile it is God who is testing us. Sometimes we put the blame on God, meanwhile it is the devil which is at work. My assignment for you is to pray to God, to open your eyes, to know the will of God concerning your life and that of the devil. If it is not from God, go to God in prayer. If it's the will of God, go to God in prayer for strength. I believe and I hope you have learned something. Not all things are from God, and not all things are from the devil. Pray to God to open your eyes to know which things are from God and which things are not from the Lord. Learn from Hannah and Elizabeth's case. God bless you.